Okay, so thanks for coming. So first you could state your name and then the time you were here in North Rockland and your various roles.
I entered North Rockland High School as an ESL teacher in 1973. I signed my contract when school was already 3 days in session. And I moved into senior English in 1984 and retired in 2004. And since then, I have been volunteering in First North Garnerville and then West Haverstraw. And I'm also the chairperson of the North Rockland Teachers Association Scholarship Program.
That's a lot. So I guess we'll start here. When you first got to North Rockland, well, what led you to come to North Rockland? What was the story of you getting to be here?
I had just finished my coursework at the University of Puerto Rico. And frankly, I thought if I came home and moped around enough, my parents would send me back. And that wasn't happening. And a friend of theirs called and said, you know, my daughter-in-law works in the district. Maybe there are people who are out on maternities. Why don't you call? And I didn't want to, but I said, I have to do something. So I called up and I figured I'm going to be smart. I tried to affect a little bit of a Spanish accent and said, hello. I gave my name and I said, I just finished studying English as a second language at the University of Puerto Rico. And she said, oh, can you hold on for a minute? And I'm like, and I'm thinking the only people who don't speak English in Rockland County are Hasidics. Because we didn't know North Rockland, we didn't know most of Rockland County. And so they said, could you be up here? Now, this is the first day of school. The Friday before school opened. They said, could you be up here Wednesday for an interview? And I'm like, oh, sure. And I lived in Mount Vernon. I had to drive my dad to Stamford to take his car. We had maps out trying to find Stony Point. And then, well, once you get to Stony Point, I said, well, they told me, but I left it at home and I have to get going for my interview. And I got up here and I made a right-hand turn on Main Street instead of a left to go to the Old Admin building. And I see Town Hall. And I was like, oh my God, this is right out of Thornton Wilder, our town, or Peyton Place. I mean, this is adorable. This is really middle America. And then I turned around and I pulled into the old administration building and I sat back and I said, I do want to stay here. I'm going to be working in a one-room schoolhouse. And I really was convinced. So I went in and I met Ron Dowen, who most people did meet those years and for many after. And he ultimately said, can you follow me to North Rockland, to the high school? And I'm like, sure, I can do that. And I'm still thinking, you know, Laura Ingalls Wilder. And we get into the car and I follow him through Reservoir Road. I'm like, and they have forests and trees. Then we're on Fields Road before that development was built. And there are cottages. And I'm like, oh, wow. And I see the houses, the three houses with the land in front of it and the water. And we turn the corner and there's nothing there. The lot from that was Willow Grove Road and Hammond Road was vacant. I'm like, my God, this is like the Old West. And we turned the corner and there was no annex then. Right. So it's just a flat building in the distance. And as we're approaching it, I'm saying to myself, gee, that's interesting. All this rural and mid-America. I said, and they have industry in the middle of everything. And that, my friends, was the high school. And I walked into the high school and I looked around. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I still couldn't figure out why they wanted me. You know, I graduated with the same English degree as all my colleagues did. Of course, you know, it was a little further away than they were. And they have me sitting down in this office, and there was a name there, Mr. Sepulveda, couldn't figure out the name. And this man walks in, this big guy walks in, sits down. He goes, Senorita Janowitz. I said, yes. And he starts speaking to me in Spanish. And I was so excited that somebody spoke Spanish that I, you know, started speaking in Spanish to him. And then he took me into the hallways. And people are speaking Spanish there, and I knew I was home. I absolutely knew I was home. And then it was a question of, we need a program, because there had been somebody there for 3 months, but nothing ever started. And so I created an ESL program, and I had to learn how to do the guidance work with these big boards and pins all around it. And as everybody kept telling me, there are 7 personalities here. You're going to have to change your personality 7 times. And they said, but walk around the building, get to meet people. And I did. And we had the, what were they called? Those trailers at that point in the district. So I walked out there to see what that was all about. And I was fascinated. And then finally, when I had gathered my students, I said, okay. I said, where's my classroom? And they said, come into the library. And they pointed upstairs in the library to one section of the library. There were no windows. There were no doors. There was no curtain. And they showed me a standing chalkboard that kind of wobbled back and forth, and a conference table. And that was my first year. And then Tony Mello took over the program. And then my life became going to meetings at the old administration building, back to, my first love of North Rockland, and visiting before my meetings, because Dr. Mello, who probably created some really great teachers here who would Title I, ESL, and reading. I mean, I know this sounds weird, but some of the best teachers in the district were under his tutelage. And, but he was always late, and sometimes he could get contentious. But there was a dungeon. The basement was like a dungeon, and there was this big room with 4 desks facing each other, and bookcases and papers all around. And there were these 4 wonderful men who were the district coordinators for English, social studies, science, and math. And Tom Casey, who became like a big brother to me, would say, okay, sit down, have a cigarette, let's talk. Is this going to be contentious, or are we just here to hear another visitor that's been in your classroom? And I would go from there. I'd sit with Tom, and he would give me my directions for the day, and talk to John O'Brien, who was the English coordinator, and Tom Manning, I love, who was reading, and Joe Nardowitz and Walt Hassett. I mean, these guys were awesome. And then I would say, okay, I said, I'm good, I'm ready. I said, but there are people I have to meet, and people I have to say hello to. So the best office, though, was right next to where you signed in. And in that office were Mary Minerick and Shirley Zemer. Shirley had been one of my first friends at North Rockland High School and had moved over there. And when you walked in the office on the right, there was a humongous poster of Engelbert Humperdinck. They were a fan club. And so I would hang out with them. I would try to get there for meetings Friday afternoon, because at a certain time they put on the music and they started dancing. And it was wonderful. And there was a boardroom there, an old boardroom that was great. And when I got involved with the union very early on, I was on this committee called the EDC, the Educational Development Committee. And we actually had meetings with the assistant superintendent of schools, who was then Milter Strowski. And there were always 2 administrators. Dave Rounds was one of the favorites. And 2 building reps or executive board members, and 2 Board of Ed members. And the 2 Board of Ed members that probably had the biggest impact, Joan Roper and Elsa Gumby. And if you were dealing with summer education grants, you were sitting in this room and you knew that these people were so prepared and loved the district and knew their teachers and wanted what was best. So, and then, as I say, I started a program at North Garneval. So that became another building, which became my love. And that went on for 18 years. And then ultimately now West Haverstraw has become my new second home. So I'm just a fan of North Rockland. I really am. Just a great fan.
Preaching to the choir on that one. So let's go here. You mentioned the program that you started, and I think that's a really important part of the legacy of North Rockland and the community. So could you talk about that program? It
was in some ways. I had been in a program when I was in high school where a couple of afternoons a week, you got on the bus and went to a different side of town and worked with kids. A number of students had come to me their senior year and said, we don't have anything we can do for the credits, for the extra credits for the honor societies. And I said, I said, let me talk to a couple of people. And of course, I went to the late Judy Newman, who was just a star in this district. And I said, Judy, I have an idea. She said, write it out. And Cindy Slotkin was the assistant principal. She said, let Cindy help you write it. She said, we don't have money. I said, you don't have to pay me. Please pay whoever is going to be the co-facilitator. I need somebody in the elementary school because, you know, they have to sign out and you have to know the parents and grandparents. Elementary school teachers have to know so much information, Gary, that we never had to know.
Exactly.
And we started the program. And one of the first students was Tommy Zugaby. So it was really wonderful because Peggy was just so supportive. And then we had parents like Ileana Eckert, where you would have, this is the greatest thing about it, there would be a group of parents who would hang out in the hall and talk and gossip, and the kids were running all over the place. And then you would look inside, and Ileana is sitting there with Amanda finishing whatever homework hadn't been taken care of. I mean, it was just an amazing experience. The program ran for 18 years, and it ended the year before they closed North Garnerville because, frankly, I think what had happened was everybody was so sad about the closing that nobody really wanted to step up. And I said, well, then it's run its course. It's done what it was supposed to do. And when I tell you the North Rockland legacy, the North Garnerville legacy now, in terms of when you go to the high school and you've got Marianne Ward, who was a PTA parent there down in special ed, and you have Jackie Monahan, who was at North Garnerville, Josephine Puglisi, Debbie Miller was a parent there. It's just, you're seeing, no matter where you go, Chris Serino and Kelly Perone, you can see the love. People see each other from North Garnerville, and they just fall into each other's arms and have a love affair. So, you know, and as I say, now I've been blessed because Allison Jarrah Conrad, who was my co-facilitator at North Garnerville, was transferred afterwards to West Haverstraw. So I went from kindergarten with her there to failing first grade Common Core math at West Hav. So my life in North Rockland couldn't be better. I do. You know, I'm a fan. I wouldn't be here otherwise. I'd be in Florida on vacation.
That's right. So this is going to be a hard one. Do you have a favorite memory or something that sticks out to you during your time at North Rockland that you just look back on? I'm sure there's millions.
There were tons of them, but something just happened recently where we lost a former student from the high school. And for years after, you know, like the silly things that leave an impact, I decided one day that for the Holdamps, who lived in Village of the Green, for the little boy, for David, the youngest, I was going to dress up for Halloween as Darth Vader. And I rented the outfit and bought the mask. And then I had to talk to my students. I said, listen, we've got to keep this a secret. I said, you're going to have to be running the classes if anybody walks in so they don't hear me speaking. And there was this one young man, Dominic Peluso, who was one of only two people. The other one was Dr. Jokum's secretary, Thursa Fitzula. The only two people all day long who knew who I was. And this Dominic, no matter whether he was in a salon, working in a salon, or when he was working with flowers at AC Moore, whenever he saw me, it was like the Darth Vader day. And it was just, you know, as I say, I have so many memories, but right now, because we just, you know, lost him. And that's unfortunately part of your growing up in a district, is that people age and we lose them. And I just tell people if there are ways to get together, then you do it, because you don't want to keep seeing people at wakes and funerals. You want to see people come into the building, say hello, visit, because this was your home. This was your home away from home all these hours. And we can't forget that.
Absolutely. One of the things that I've learned today is it's this concept that's come up, and I live it and I feel it too, is there's this idea of the North Rockland family. And what does it mean to you to be a part of the North Rockland family? Actually, I'm going to ask it two ways. What does it mean to be in the North Rockland family? And then what does it mean to you?
North Rockland family is composed of every bit of North Rockland, from the shops, the pharmacies, the going back to the meat market next to Babes, to I don't know, even when Mount Ivy Cafe opened and another place to gather. And North Rockland is walking around and seeing people and them knowing you and you having a relationship with them. There was just a former student outside here that I haven't seen in years, but we keep in touch on Facebook. And it's very interesting because a number of former students, teachers are all on Facebook, and they all talk about their days at North Rockland and how much love there was. There's just something about this community, which is, the school is so big, but you know this with our kids, it's as if this is a great big safe world, and they're really nervous when you're a senior teacher. When you're sending them out into the world, it's monumental for them. And that's because this district is hugged. Mm-hmm. This district is hugged by the generations before. That's the only way I can think to describe it. And to me, as a carpetbagger, when I say to people, I went to the Jerry Lewis Theater and I saw the Goonies in Samsondale, and I knew where the A&P was and have a straw, and I must have gained 50 million calories stopping at a certain bake shop in Haverstraw for years and years and years. And, it's just being part of a community and being accepted, even though you were teased plenty about being a New Yorker, being a city kid from Mount Vernon. Now, everybody really, really has been warm and inviting here.
So I think you hit on this, but I'll ask it anyway as the kind of wrap up here. What does make North Rockland so special?
People. It's just people and a feeling of pride in North Rockland. I think people have always felt that. There's no place that I haven't been since the beginning that people haven't been proud to be a part of North Rockland. And even if the students are getting I want out of here, that's not it. They're going to be back. They're going to be back. And if you look at the number of students, of teachers who are former students here, mm-hmm. That should tell the whole story. That not because they can't get a job elsewhere, because we have people working in this district who could have gotten jobs anywhere, and they came home. Even if their parents are no longer here, they came home to North Rockland. And that's what North Rockland is. North Rockland is home. North Rockland is just people and feeling good and being kind to each other.
Awesome. Anything you wanted to add? We're going to edit, don't worry.
Okay.
All right.